Hello and welcome to another Pro Wrestling Post podcast. On this week's show,
In WWE news, is Retribution finished? And could we be looking at the Tribal Chief against the Brahma Bull at WrestleMania?
In Impact Wrestling news, The Rock scheduled to appear at Ken Shamrock's Impact Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and we have the card for Victory Road this Saturday night.
all that and more. Hello and welcome to another Pro Wrestling Post podcast. How are we all at home? All good, I hope, in these strange and disconcerting times of this COVID era. As always, I am here with my wrestling buds from across the pond. I have my friend Pete and my friend Mark. How are we doing, Pete?
We're doing pretty darn good.
Excellent. And how are we doing over there, Mark?
Cold and old.
Cold and old, yes. Dear listeners, you may not know this, but as someone tried to stitch me up a couple of weeks ago when it was my birthday, Mark turned a very significant age yesterday, actually, time of recording, Wednesday. And Mark had a great birthday. He needed a great day after a very testing week. And all of us at the Pro Wrestling Post send you our love. You all good over there, mate?
Yeah, good. I'm good. A little sore than I probably was maybe 2 days ago, but for some reason, they say age is just a number. Only when it gets higher and things start moving a lot slower than they did before. Yes.
Oh, I'm
really
with you
high
there,
number.
I am so with you there. How are you though, Pete? You all good? You were nice and relaxed and chilled?
Oh yeah, things are pretty good here. Cats have been quiet.
Excellent.
The weather has cleared up for the most part.
So
yeah,
cats have been fed and you're ready to go.
Exactly.
Excellent. So on that note, shall we crack on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Right. So straight away into some WWE news. You may have seen on Raw this week that there was no Retribution. There was no Raw Underground. There really wasn't a lot going on. Mark has the details. So is it really true? Is Retribution done?
So, we asked that question in our intro. We could go and jump and say yes, and reason we're taking that leap of faith in saying yes is because one of the members had tested positive. I'm not even quite sure specifically who, but one of the members of Retribution tested positive for COVID, and you only work as well as all your parts put together. And so when one part is missing, it leaves things up in the air. It's unfortunate because it's a couple of weeks removed from them really trying to get behind the steam of it. And when we're in a society with everything having a really short attention span, if you don't have that momentum going, where's the excitement? Where's the interest? Where do people care? And so therein lies the question with Retribution. Is this it?
It doesn't look good. I've got to admit. What about you, Pete? I mean, you as well as myself, we've been super hard on Retribution.
We really have.
It might just be that it's not the fact that the fans have turned on it. It might be that COVID has killed Retribution.
Yeah, really, it seems like that because we heard about the COVID reports from the Performance Center, which is where a lot of these guys in Retribution have been stationed while they're waiting for their moment in the Thunderdome. We've mentioned all kinds of reasons why Retribution probably should have come apart, but if this is what it takes to either end this or give them some much needed direction. You mentioned, other Mark, that
Yes.
a unit is only as strong as all of their members together, and
Yeah.
I get flashbacks to the Nexus as we have been since Retribution came to the forefront.
Yeah, that's been the quickest comparison, right?
It has been the quickest comparison, and again, it continues to, because I'm thinking about Daniel Bryan getting fired for strangling Justin Roberts. I'm thinking about Michael Tarver's injury that got him kicked out of the group, and so that kind of helped that storyline where it seemed like that power was going to Wade Barrett's head, and he was becoming kind of a petty tyrant. But this time around, like, I guess the sort of that storyline wouldn't play out. We're also seeing a lot of other stuff get scrapped or at least postponed due to COVID, because there also wasn't a Raw Underground this week. and probably for the
No.
same reason.
So I don't know if there was anyone that was tested. If something happened to Dabakato, but it seems like
I think with Raw
although that
Underground.
him
Sorry, Mark. With Raw Underground, it was the fact that a lot of the audience outside of the ring are NXT talent, and there was possibly an outbreak over there, or they were worried that being in contact with main roster members that have been in contact with Retribution members who have got COVID, there might be some case of it passing it down to the performance centers, either one or the other. But that's the reason that I heard.
which would make sense, right? You go through all the testing, you take all the precautions, but if you're not socially distancing, as we're often told and encouraged to do, how do you do that in an area where you're not masked? You're pounding on the ring. Adrenaline is I mean, you're trying to raise emotions. You're smothering an area. There is no distancing there, too. So it's understood why they would do that. Although I didn't kind of like what happened with Dabakato last week, in that we're building up this potentially next big thing in a monster. Ironically, we talk about Brock and the next big thing, and it's Dabakato who ends up taking the beating. So I don't know what the decision is then to do with him.
I remember when we were talking about Raw Underground initially as like a vehicle to get Dabakato over, and I don't see what the purpose was now that they when last week when they brought over Braun Strowman and had him just run through Dabakato. You know, you got your SmackDown beast. Why can't we have a beast on Raw?
Yeah.
It is very strange. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last time that we admonish the booking of just Raw and SmackDown in general. There's highs of their booking, and there's complete cock-ups like this. You can't. Dabakato was seen as a monster for how many weeks on Raw Underground, and then the moment he's actually tested, okay, it was against Braun, but you've shot yourself in the foot, because no one's really going to take him seriously again. He could be built up like Ryback and have a 4-on-1 match, and he could put 4 people on his shoulders. It's not really going to make much difference. They've killed his momentum before he's even started.
That was the one thing with Brock. Like he could be built up. He could lose. It was almost like you're putting kinks in the armor of the giant. And yeah, he may lose that complete obliteration that he faced of Goldberg at the one Survivor Series. But for the most part, you never got that feeling because there was so much built up around him, and the mystique and the infrequency in which you would see him. For somebody so young to do that, it's a real shot. And then they have to really work hard now to re-achieve what they were initially trying to achieve. If this was a matchup that they were to feature a Raw Underground between the two of them at a major event, then that I see that they're building towards something. But to kind of hype it up and then to get crushed like that, much like you guys, it just doesn't jive. Why would we want to care?
Yeah, you mentioned how booking has been kind of all over the place lately on the main roster. We were talking about the possibility that Drew McIntyre might be holding like an open challenge for the WWE Championship, but is that a thing that they even confirmed?
Nothing has been confirmed. Drew never said that it was going to be a continuation. WWE hasn't said it's going to be a continuation. But the fact that he said, like, someone at the back can face me that hasn't faced me before. I mean, there's a lot of bloody people out there. I mean, so the people that didn't get a shot, they could be clamoring over everyone else to say, wait, what about us? You threw it out last week. What about this week? So, but then how many times have we seen the Open Challenge? Cena did it with the US title, elevated the US title. Cody did it over on AEW with the TNT. Eddie Edwards in Impact.
Isn't that what FTR are kind of doing with their 20 minutes with greatness in AEW?
It sounded like it. They didn't word it as, "Hey, this is an open challenge," but it definitely sounds like it.
I mean, yeah, the market is kind of flooded. We're coming out of that now, but it seems like for once it's WWE chasing the trends.
So. Could we be seeing AEW actually making WWE change their ways a bit? I saw a report from I think our very own Mike Bryan shared it on his Facebook, where somebody in the entertainment industry, in the TV industry, was saying that WWE are going down the skids because of everything that us fans have been saying for the last 10 years. And now the industry insiders have seen it, and they are going, they're very worried that WWE, when their contracts are up for renegotiation, they will not be getting anywhere near the money they're getting now because no one has faith in them.
I think when you're looking at advertisers, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, they're always looking for what is a certain demographic interested in, what is the hot commodity, what is the hottest trend. I'm sure your kids will talk about TikTok, or they'll talk about doing certain dances, and that's what's going to resonate. So to jokingly kind of transcend and talk about Chris Jericho and calling himself the demo god, I really don't think that's a joke. And that if advertisers are going to see, well, this is where the publicity is, this is where the interest is, this is where we're going to advertise towards, we're going to fall in line and follow this trend and buy our advertising space on Dynamite. Does that mean WWE is going to take the massive hit? I don't think that they're ever going to be positioned in a place where they're not going to be that top number, but I'm sure advertisers are going to look at that and say, well, more money's invested there. People are competing for spots on that show for that. Does that push Dynamite to wanting to be a 3rd-hour show because there's such a demand for advertising on it?
Oh,
and
God, I
people
hope not.
Yeah.
But right. But they're looking at it from a marketing standpoint. I want to get my. I know that I'm going to have an older crowd watching after 9 o'clock or after 10 o'clock. Maybe the content's a little more risque, and that's what I'm gearing it towards. But I've got all these people fighting for advertising spots. From a business standpoint, you're trying to make as much money as you can.
Oh, for
Unfortunately, the product in WWE, we get the crap end of something when we're watching. I'm not sure if there's a section where it's the most interesting. If we go back to the WCW wars with WWE, we had certain hours allocated to certain groups, whatever it was, right? If the cruisers were on for the first hour and then you had your big guys on that last hour, you could push with content that's pushing the envelope a little bit more over the edge. But then you might get beer drinking advertisements pushed in that direction because people are up that point. So that's kind of where I'm kind of in a roundabout way getting to when it comes to interest and where the interests lie and where they're paying attention to it.
That's a really good point, and I think
Thanks.
that speaks to yeah. And I think if you want to look at the numbers as a whole, like 4 years ago, WWE would have been like they were pulling in like 4 million viewers for Raw weekly, and you look at it now, and they're like scraping by with just over 1 million. And we remember that a couple weeks ago when AEW Dynamite was unopposed, and they managed to draw 1 million views for the first time. Yeah. And so you have on one side WWE's numbers that are dropping steadily, and on the AEW side you seeing that when they're not opposed, when that's probably going to get better as the NBA and NHL playoffs come to a close. How many more viewers are they going to get from that? And I think that's really going to be true.
Because look at the NFL. The NFL season has started. They're a major, and are the Cons going to redirect towards the Jaguars? Because then that becomes the focal point on Monday, and their team is playing on Mondays. They win the demographic. If that's the case, that's kind of funny. In an indirect way, the Cons win. They win on Monday. They win on Wednesday.
Yeah. But also, like, follow-up question is: are there NFL games on Wednesdays?
No.
Because I'm familiar.
There are on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thursdays are right.
Yeah.
But what happens when opposition from AEW comes down to only NXT? We're probably going to see a lot more shifts in how things happen or how things are going when those numbers become clearer.
So as you so expertly put, with AEW scoring their highest audience for quite some time of over 1 million against an unopposed NXT. We have last night's NXT, as we're recording on a Thursday here, folks. that has put on their go home show for this Sunday's takeover. Did any of us watch it? Do we know anything about it? And who, for the life of me, who is that mystery person coming back on Sunday?
So I caught some of the highlights. I saw the Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae versus Io Shirai and Damian Priest, with Gargano and Candice getting their victory, and they had their moment where they posed with the North American and NXT Women's Championships together. That seems to be more like just an image for the go home.
Yeah, that did remind me of like proper Attitude Era Raw, where right before a major pay-per-view you'd end up with the good, great image of someone standing tall with the belt as just as the credits come up and it fades to black. That's exactly what that reminded me of.
Yeah, and that functions as its own cool little thing there. However, I think of the more interesting things would be, like you said, this mystery interloper. I'm still believing that it's going to be Bo Dallas, or at the very least someone else who has been a champion within NXT. I'm also interested in the developments with Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor, because they did this video package for Kyle O'Reilly talking about his career and how much he wanted to face Finn Balor, but wherever he got to where Finn was at, it was just as Finn was making his exit. So he talked about like wanting to come to New Japan to face off with Prince Devitt, but he was signing his NXT contract. So Kyle O'Reilly goes to NXT, and he gets to NXT, and Balor's heading to the main roster, and so you get these guys, or you get this sense of Kyle O'Reilly in more of a babyface light than he's been in his time with Undisputed Era, and that's certainly a development, especially because there's been lots of talk over the years of plans to split up the Undisputed Era. Personally, I'd rather they not, because I like there being this squad of cool bad guys wandering around. But yeah, that's definitely a way to deal with the fact that Kyle O'Reilly is kind of the untested factor here.
You've heard the same rumors that I've heard this week. It's coming out from last night that there is tentative plans to break up the Undisputed Era, and by the sound of it, it's going to be a nasty split, as Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly will be faces, whereas Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong will be heels. Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
You're not sure, Mark? Are you sure? What do you think?
I will tell you, Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole have history together. Anybody that had followed them before this, know that where they've been alongside each other, and even if they've been on the other end of each other and fighting, it's been pretty brutal. So if it is going to happen, it's a disappointment. I think, just like Pete said, these guys have it all together. It's the one faction that seems to, regardless, they weather the tide. Everybody knows where their role is. Yes, they make it clear that Adam is the leader, but at the same time, they're still there to support each other. They're still there to back each other up. And a nasty split, like you said, yikes. That doesn't sound good.
Honestly, I think this could have worked a little better, or this could work a little better if instead of Adam and Kyle becoming the babyface, it was if it was Roderick and Kyle turning babyface. Because I think Roderick Strong just kind of fits in that babyface role more elegantly than Adam Cole does.
Yeah, I agree.
I've never rated Roderick as a face. Never rated him. He's just too bland. I've seen more character in him being a heel in the last 2 years of Undisputed Era than I have in 8 years of seeing him on the Indies as a face. It's
more like, who are you more convinced? Are you convinced when you would? I see where kind of Pete is going. Like, are you convinced when you look at Roderick and you say this guy's a heel, or does it look forced? Like with Adam Cole, he's a natural. I don't know. Maybe my impression. He seems like
right.
He's a natural heel. It just comes off smooth as silk, right? And maybe because he's so bland, as you've said, I'm a huge Roderick Strong fan, so I'm not going to look at at the persona per se, but I look at him and I'm like, wrestling, Mr. ROH wrestling skill aside, he's got the face because it's so natural. But when you look at him, you don't find that it's forced? You find that it's a natural heel quality in him?
I've seen him in PWG. I've seen him over here on the Indies in the UK. I've seen him in NXT before he joined UE. And him as a face, even with those, do you know those promos he did with his wife and his background growing up and the sad childhood that he had?
Yeah.
I was starting to think, oh, wow, like the sympathetic babyface kind of thing, which is obviously the reason why they did them. But then you get him in the ring, on the walk down to the ring, it might just be me. I'm not putting him down as an in-ring talent because he is flipping and awesome and phenomenal. But as a character, as a face character, he didn't click for me. But then you were talking about Adam Cole being a natural heel, which he so is. But I think they started sowing the seeds for this with his feud with Pat McAfee. They've made Adam Cole the saving grace of NXT of, who's this guy coming in, this punter who hasn't wrestled a match. I'm going to stand up for... He was being a righteous hero, Adam Cole was. So I think they've started sowing the seeds then for the face turn.
See, and I don't know if it being a 50-50 split, but I could see it being Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. I think I've seen them so long as being the heels that works. And that Roderick has always been the guy on the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
And
at any point.
We touched on it very briefly a while back. How people used to be like career heels and baby faces, and how that's kind of not a thing anymore. I think that sense is something that we get from Adam Cole, from the Miz, from on the other end of the spectrum. You got your Sami Zayn's, your Ricky Steamboat's, Sting even. Some people you look at and you just get the feeling that this guy's the good guy. And I think that's ultimately what I wanted to get at with Roderick Strong. The blandness, maybe that's just a thing that he could get over with, or that he could get over with the right coaching. Like if you get some of the promo guys in there with him and teach him how to like get himself over more effectively.
Well, when he started there, Shawn Michaels wasn't, and Shawn Michaels is probably one of the best baby faces of all time. So if he could take him under his wing and show him a few tips and tricks, that could definitely work.
Oh yeah, I do believe that could work. But yeah, as for Adam Cole, that guy just has the look of a bad guy. Like I look at that guy, I think I get images like Diesel. I get images like who else? Career bad guy.
Mr. Perfect. I don't know.
Yeah, Mr. Perfect. Scott Hall, Little.
Yeah.
Those are guys who have the cool swagger. He's the cool bad guy. That's the thing, is that there's difference between just a regular old heel and the heel who's cool.
Didn't Eric Bischoff and who else? I think someone, maybe even Paul Heyman himself, said that there's no such thing as as a proper bad guy anymore because all the bad guys want to be cool because they get merch sales.
Yeah. NWO really messed that up for a lot of people.
So we're leaving WWE and NXT, and good luck to them with their takeover this Sunday. We're going to pop over to Impact, who had a jam-packed show on Tuesday, and our resident expert, Pete, I'm sure he's going to start this with a plug, but what happened on Impact this week?
Read my feature, Brace for Impact, every Monday on the Pro Wrestling Post website. So we've had some news in the build for Victory Road, which is kind of coming as the build for Bound for Glory, kind of solidifying the landscape as we come to the big pay-per-view. I remember a long time ago people told me that Bound for Glory was like Impact's WrestleMania. I never got that feeling because Slammiversary is the pay-per-view they bother to number.
That's right.
I don't get it. But we'll leave it as is. So yeah, we got a bunch of the card for Victory Road on Tuesday night. So we had some more development between Tyre Valkyrie and Rosemary. They've been working together as tag team again. They managed to defeat Nevaeh and Havoc. The Good Brothers had a little standoff with some of the other tag teams in the roster as they've gotten their they seem to be at the head of the class for a tag team title shot. We learned that Deonna Purrazzo will be defending her championship at Victory Road against Susie. And we had a rematch between Tennille Dashwood and Jordynne Grace.
And Tennille Dashwood, talking of which, she had an Impact press pass yesterday, and our post has gone up with her chatting to... Who did she chat to? Was it Jake? Jake Landmaster?
Jake Landmaster, yeah.
Yeah, she spoke to Jake. So feel free, guys, girls, to go back to theprowrestlingpost.com and have a look at that. Rather interesting. That woman never breaks character. That's all I'm going to say.
As evident by that press pass, definitely. When we spoke to Jordynne about like 6 months ago when she won the title, when we pitched the question of who she wanted to face, even then she had mentioned Tennille. So, this could have always been in the works and just waiting for Tennille to be healthy in order for things to kind of come together.
Long-term booking. Wow. Who would have thought it?
Yeah.
So some Victory Road matches were made clearer on this week's Impact. And I think some more were mentioned or made public after Impact had finished.
Yes, we learned a whole bunch about what was going on with, like, they announced basically everything else on the card. We knew from last week that Eric Young will be defending his Impact World Championship in a rematch with Eddie Edwards. We now know that Deonna Purrazzo will be defending the Knockouts Championship against against Susie. Rohit Raju is defending against, we don't know yet.
Is this technically an open challenge?
The way he's been talking about it is more of a beat Rohit challenge.
Yeah.
So maybe.
So
it's just everyone's doing open challenges and trying.
Open challenges are so passe now. I'm done with open challenges.
You get an open challenge, and you get an open. I feel like Oprah's going to be standing and
maybe talk about the undercard a little.
There's some interesting matches that undercard.
There are some very interesting matches.
I'm liking Brian Myers, mate.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested in that match. The problem is that it had literally no build.
No.
or sorry, next to no build. You want to know what, Mark, you know what happened?
No.
Brian Myers and Tommy Dreamer had a standoff in a hallway. And that's why they're having it. That's it. That's all it was.
I can't believe we've just praised them for long-term booking, and then the booking for this match is this.
I don't know. It's like two steps away from being, he beat me in a game of rock, paper, scissors. I'm looking for retribution. What? but yeah, I like a confrontation.
The confrontation. Yeah.
You really expected more from the first time that the most professional wrestler and the innovator of violence meet one-on-one.
You'd hope that, and obviously we were all hoping, and all we got was a rather tense confrontation in a hallway. But let's hope that they can kickstart the show. I would imagine they'll open the show. So just have a great. I mean, Tommy's kind of not the guy he used to be, and as I cover ECW, I'm seeing him in his prime. But seeing him now, he's still good to go. RVD can go, so can he. We'll talk about RVD in a bit, but yeah, it's a good match. Anything else on that undercard that takes your fancy?
So there's the rubber match, Jordynne Grace versus Tennille Dashwood 3.
Yep.
This will go a long way to establish the pecking order in the Knockouts division. Any thoughts?
I would be surprised. So right now this is the rubber match.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be disappointed if Jordynne loses it. It almost felt like she was kind of put in her place by Deonna Purrazzo, and then Tennille comes back, and then she loses again. And so, I don't know, I almost feel like there's not going to be any certainty with this one.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like there won't be a decision, and that this gets carried out to something else, as though this isn't the be-all and end-all. Like, they're going to walk out with more questions than they will answers.
Yeah, I see. Especially because the way I've heard Jordynne Grace talk about this feud as one that she's been wanting to have for so very long, just to have 2 TV matches and a match on a special event seems, kind of underwhelming for something that both competitors seem so excited about.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer this with 2 syllables. Caleb. He's going to get involved. Mm-hmm. He's going to get the win. and Jordan's going to be playing catch up and just being a nasty, vicious, this side of her that we haven't seen for quite a while. She's got the hump with Caleb. She's got the hump with Tenille. I reckon Tenille's going to win due to shenanigans from Caleb, the fantastic photographer, who, by the way, I still haven't seen a single piece of his work online. And there was a late match that was announced. It was a 4-way.
Yes.
A rather strange match. It's a 4-way, but with a difference.
Yes, they're featuring one member of each of the 4 teams who are in contendership for World Tag Team Championship #1 contendership. Oh, sorry, 3 of them and 1 representative of the champions. We have Alex Shelley from Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Motor City Machine Guns, versus Josh Alexander, half the North, versus Carl Anderson, half the Good Brothers, versus Ace Austin, who has been having a pretty good run with his new partner, Madman Fulton.
They've been looking good. They've surprised me. The chemistry they've got.
Yeah. Like I mentioned when they came together, that they've got a very Shawn Michaels and Diesel thing going on.
Yeah.
And that I think is really starting to work to their advantage.
So that's going to be a strange old match, isn't it? I mean, that's not going to be a simple. Not that 4 ways are simple. This is not going to be a formulaic 4-way. This is technically it's going to be 4 in the ring and 4 out the ring. So there's not going to be much in the way of fair play in this match, I think.
Which is the kind of chaos that sometimes that sometimes gives you the big blow away high spots of a show.
Yeah.
So what's their motivation in the match itself? Is it just winner take all? Is it just
I think
bragging rights?
I think it's just a bragging rights kind of thing right now, just because so many of these teams or these guys have been in contendership for the World Tag Team Championship. Like, I'm surprised that there's not a representative from the Rascals.
Yeah, they've been on a tear as well, and it's a shame that the Rascals aren't involved.
It's probably because they've kind of had their 2 shots. And they're kind of making room for
the bottom
others.
of the pecking order.
Well, they're not exactly at the bottom of the pecking order, because there's Team XXXL and Reno Scum, who where have they been lately? I can follow up with something about Reno Scum, because this is also worth noting. Adam Thornstowe and Luster the Legend are going to take on Heath and Rhino in an unsanctioned match.
Yes! Come on, Heath! Come on!
Yeah, this.
I told you guys last week he didn't do Eddie. I told you all. He's not a heel at heart. He's got kids to feed. He needs that contract.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to say that.
Not gonna let that happen.
So, yeah, I was wrong. He's gonna get that contract fair and square, hopefully, when he and Rhino run through Reno Scum, who are apparently Hernandez's henchmen now, since Ace Austin is hooked up with Madman Fulton.
Yeah, I think Hernandez put an ad out on Craigslist, and they answered. So there you go. That's not bad for them.
You mentioned, however,
sorry,
as we're you mentioned the attack on Eddie Edwards last week. I forgot to mention that we have an answer as to who launched the attack. The mystery attacker was, in fact, Ken Shamrock.
Oh my words!
Wow.
Oh.
So
do you reckon they turned the lights off because it took Ken so long to get to where he was supposed to be to do the attack?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, Ken against Eddie. That's treading over old waters again. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
I mean, they've had to deal with absences due to COVID, so it makes sense that they might want to pick up where there might be some unfinished business from before. But this is interesting given what's going on with Ken Shamrock in the near future, as he's going into the Impact Hall of Fame.
He certainly is. I'm going to congratulate you on yet another great segue there, dude. That news broke, was that about 6 weeks ago? But there was another piece of news that broke along with it. Something to do with a certain friend of his from his time in WWE?
Yes. So it was last week. Ken Shamrock went on Twitter to ask a favor from The Rock, since those two had some excellent matches in the late 90s, kind of defining Ken Shamrock's career in the limelight. It's interesting that he would reach out to someone as mega famous and so intimately connected with the WWE to speak at his Hall of Fame ceremony.
It's very strange, but as we found out through the Kurt Angle, it's not the first time that they've done business together, as in WWE. But I don't think Rock is even under contract with WWE.
No,
so...
I don't think he's under contract anymore. He's just Vince just kind of has an open door policy with the Rock.
Yeah. So unless he gave Uncle Vince a courteous phone call and said, "Look, I'm doing this," tough, because to be fair, Dwayne holds all the cards at the moment. Yeah, it's rather strange. He's not there in person. Is he doing a video message?
Yeah, I think he recorded a video message that will play at the Impact Hall of Fame ceremony. But still, that's going to be a significant draw for Impact.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, it's going to have Impact Wrestling on people's minds, and that's better advertisement than any commercial.
Indeed, that's column inches right there. You know, the most. He's the most well-paid actor in the world right now, or he's been in the news a bit with presidential candidacy and all this kind of stuff. Mark, what do you think to this? It's strange. Is it a possible future thing between different wrestlers working with different companies? And what do you think?
I can't see why it wouldn't be, especially if they've got the freedom to do so. I know it definitely peels the curtain back a little bit and says, well, we see that there's competition out there. We value them. We respect them. Why can't there be? Why does one company need to hold all the cards? I think what Chris Jericho did in going to Dynamite was that beginning, those signs of that, and the work he did with New Japan. I think if anybody said, look what I can do or what can be done, why do you, in the latter part of your life or your career, feel like you can't open up new doors for yourself as a brand? And The Rock is doing something. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. He's looking at himself. He's doing something publicly. Someone reached out to him publicly. It's great, and it works. It's a win-win, really, for The Rock. It's a win for Impact. It's not really a win for WWE, but what does that say on just one night for that to happen?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're prepared to take a hit that night. I mean, they're going to blow it off and say, it's not a hit really, but you think of The Rock, you think of WWE. So seeing him pop up on a rival wrestling promotion show, it's going to smart a little bit, surely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On the subject of The Rock, we forgot something that we mentioned in the intro while we were talking about WWE news.
I mentioned that in our chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So spoilers, teasers, call it what you will. Really interesting that has the stage been set with another blood feud to take place, because we say bloodline with The Rock and Jey Uso. We saw Jimmy get involved. Could another family member be the one that Roman has to cement his tribal chief status against another Samoan dynasty member in The Rock? Is that something we look at for WrestleMania? Take my money.
This has been spoken about for 2-3 years at least. Them two, the major, they kept calling it a passing of the torch. To be fair, The Rock is so jacked, he could still probably go anyway. I can't see any torch being passed at all. But with Roman and this incessant need to be the high chief, the head of the table, he's not there yet, because his older cousin is, well, look, as I just said earlier, he's the highest grossing actor in Hollywood right now. He owns a goddamn football league. Roman's got to take on The Rock to be cemented as the high chief.
It's interesting considering how very little of that came through, especially like the Samoan heritage in The Rock's previous runs with the company. And now that so many more of his relatives are working there, it's something that's coming back up again in kind of an ugly way. If we're looking at it from, Roman trying to trying to establish himself, but he's got all kinds of shadows that he has to come out from under, because lots of his family were in the business first and made all these waves, and now he's kind of known as the guy that everyone, or that the hardcore fans at least, kind of love to hate.
Yeah, how long have we all been clamoring for him to turn heel? Because we all knew exactly how great he could be. Without blowing our own collective IWC trumpet, we all knew he could do a good job of being a heel and could make a run into being a great heel. What happened last Sunday in his match against Jay, he impressed so many people. My timeline on Twitter and my personal Facebook went through the roof with how many people were impressed with Roman and his heel actions, his demeanor in his match against Jay. It was unreal, really was.
And I remember when we brought this up, when Roman joined forces with Paul Heyman, you were kind of uncertain of whether or not this was going to be the direction moving forward.
I was worried that Paul was going to be in the mouthpiece, just like he was with Brock, and it would be Brock version 2.
Yeah.
How wrong was I? I will sit here and put my hands up and say, yeah, I was completely wrong, and I am so glad I am wrong, because I never imagined Roman to fully embrace this vicious, nasty heel persona, and he's owning it, and he's owning it with a smile on his face, a vicious, evil smile, but he's owning it so well. And yeah, Paul's just in the background. To be fair, he didn't even get a look in on Sunday, Paul Heyman. He was a peripheral figure as Roman just demolished Jay. And yeah, I could not be happier to be bloody wrong, I'll tell you.
But even in being wrong, like it's so understood why you would have thought that. Like, why would we have thought of Heyman having any other role but for the role that he's had, when he was that? He even spoke, to some extent, it felt more cohesive, where him and CM Punk, when they were together, where he would speak as would Punk, but it was more mutual. It's almost like the third layer to this Heyman character. Almost, I can share the role, I can be the role, or I could just actually switch roles. And I'm just there in the most ugly-looking Miss Elizabeth type persona I could be, and be in the background and not speak. I don't know why that's the image that just popped in, but I'm sure we'll get some hate mail. How do you compare one to the other?
I mean,
but
well, I mean, I hate to be that guy, but the way Paul Heyman works as a manager kind of feels similar to the same way Melina did. Where her job is really just to sit on the outside and scream.
Mm. But did you notice on Sunday he didn't do that? He didn't gesture. He didn't scream. He was watching like a fan. And the only time he got involved, that in my recollection, is when Roman was saying, "Call me the Chief" to Jay, and Paul was on the outside, or he was on the apron, and he was saying, "You're my chief. You're the king of my table." And Roman looked at Paul and went, "I don't need you to tell me. I need him to tell me." And Paul backed down. It was so good. That little character switch, that development. Oh my God. It was, I was sat here with a great big smile on my face thinking, yeah, they've done it. They've pulled the trigger. They've done it. This is it. So are we all happy, in agreement that Roman against The Rock is going to happen or should happen?
It should happen.
Should.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it going to happen?
I can't see them doing it if there's a pandemic. That's too much money to be earned and not have a live crowd there selling out a 60 to 80,000 seat arena.
So we're agreed that it should happen, but it should happen at a Mania. And in another bit of news that Pete's going to drop on us in a minute, the only Mania it really can happen is next year, because in 2022, The Rock is slightly busy, isn't he, Pete?
Yeah, he's. There's rumors that he's going to be running the relaunch of the XFL.
Yep, him and his business partner posted a video on all social media saying they will be back. The XFL, I should say, pronouns, will be back in 2022, which is great because I love football, I was getting into the NFL, then the pandemic come along and stopped everything. Yeah, like I said, 2022 is a busy year for him. He may not get the chance to wrestle Roman in March because if I remember rightly, the XFL season is around about that time.
Yeah, just a couple weeks after the Super Bowl game.
It's a difficult one. I can't. Up until the news today, I thought 2022 was nailed on because I can't see WrestleMania happening next year in a 80,000 seat arena or even a 10,000 seat arena. I reckon restrictions are still going to be in place, which then puts it forward to 2022. And like I said, up until today, I reckon that was nailed on. But the Rockers obviously gone, I'm slightly busy. We'll have to work on it. So granted, there's plenty of time to arrange it and get things finalised. But in my eyes, it's looking bleak.
Mm-hmm. And then we also got to figure that, like, what's WWE's financial? Well, they're making more money than ever, but what's their financial situation going to be like by the time WrestleMania comes around? Considering the viewers that they're losing every week, considering the state of the roster, considering all the things that we've talked about when it comes to AEW and Impact.
Yeah, it seems like that the AEW and Impact have got a better handle of how to run their companies during this pandemic, and WWE still seem to be running around on eggshells, not sure which way to turn. Or is it just me?
No, that's definitely how things have seemed since the pandemic started, and since they've had to think on their feet and make these snap decisions about how to move forward.
What about you, Mark? You're very quiet. You're pondering, aren't you?
I'm pondering and I keep getting kicked out of Discord, so a combination of things. But more so, I think they're trying to figure out what's the right direction. Unfortunately, the decisions that they tend to make are going to fall under criticism regardless. This match either happens and should happen or doesn't, and then it sits to the side. But I think it really cements Roman. If we're still on the topic of decision making and what they're going to do as a response.
Yes, it's going to be some top level negotiations and, dare I say it, future booking going on there. Long-term storytelling, hopefully, maybe, possibly. There's been some roster departures from the Impact roster, Pete. Is it RVD? RVD and his Mrs. Katie have left the building?
Rob Van Dam and Katie Forbes are no longer involved with Impact Wrestling. Apparently, they hadn't been under contract for quite some time, and they'd been just kind of working, like finishing up their program with Sami Callihan, which came to an end in rather depressing fashion last week. Yeah, now they're finished, and RVD did an interview with a new site I'm not so very familiar with called Pro Wrestling Junkies, where he mentioned that he was working with WWE on a few projects.
Yeah, you spoke about that earlier, so I did a bit of digging and found the interview, and he didn't go into much detail about these projects, which is very vague, but it's leading or misleading to think that he could be coming back to the roster. I mean, if Jeff Hardy's there and his mate Tommy Dreamer's getting a pay-per-view slot, surely he can still go? Maybe in WWE?
Potentially. I mean, the last time we saw him in WWE was in 2014.
Yeah, that's right.
From some of the context clues I've gotten, it seems to be like more of a home media thing than a in-ring return. So right. maybe they're going to do some ECW retrospective or like a retrospective on someone's career, and he's there for like interviews. Maybe he'll do a table for 3. And I've also heard some speculation that maybe he's doing something relating to the video games, which, considering the state of WWE gaming, maybe not. But yeah, that's the info that we have available to us.
So, Mark, quick question for you: do you know much about Katie Forbes?
A little bit, and from what I've seen, she a little more, I'm going to say a risque version of Session Moth, but is she more is Is she more on the sexualized version of the sex?
If you could cross Session Moth Martina, Melina, and Scarlett Bordeaux, I think that would work. If RVD came back to WWE as a roster member capacity, do you envisage Katie joining him on the roster, even as a valet?
No,
Ugh,
not that not
no.
that character.
Yeah, not in that guys. Yeah.
I've just thrown it out there because so many people are going to be asking and thinking in their basements, thinking, "Oh yeah, great,
We get to see that."
Yeah, on primetime TV, fantastic. I'm sure Vince will be up for it, mind, but
Yeah.
we all know what he's like. In the run-up to Bound for Glory, Impact have struck a deal with AXS, the TV station that carries Impact. Have you guys seen what's happening? They've called it an Impact Week.
Yes. Reminds me of a thing they did in 2015. I mean WWE. In 2015, they had this like a week where all of their stuff was on USA Network.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had. I think that was the first time NXT was ever on USA Network.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, they had. It was. They had Raw. They had SmackDown. They had Tribute to the Troops. They had NXT and something else. Main Event maybe. But yeah, it was just a week where a whole bunch of primetime went to WWE, and now we're about to see the same thing only on Access with Impact.
Yeah, they've struck a really good deal here. They've on Tuesday, October the 20th, so 4 days before the pay-per-view, they obviously have their Go Home Impact show. Straight after that, you will get the Talking Shop Boys. Well, minus Romero, because I don't think he'll be allowed. But you've got Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows doing a Talking Shop full keg, which I'm not sure what that's going to be like. Is it going to be like a visual version of their podcast? If it is, that's got to be must-see because their podcasts are just crazy. Then on the Thursday 22nd, you have a documentary called This Is Bound for Glory, where a documentary crew has gone behind the scenes with the challengers and the champions for the card for Bound for Glory. And then, taking a leaf out of NXT and WWE, you've got a live Countdown to Glory, which is a panel show before Bound for Glory starts. They are pretty much ripping off WWE. And I mean that with all sincerity, because Impact could possibly do an even better job than WWE with some of the stuff they've got here.
Sorry, just filling in on the you mentioned Talking Shop Full Keg. Yeah, that's going to be a live broadcast of their podcast from a drinking establishment somewhere in Tennessee, probably.
Oh my god, that could go horribly wrong. Do you two listen to their podcast at all?
I've listened to some of Talking Shop.
Oh my god, it's risque is putting it nicely. It is sometimes downright nasty and dirty and lewd and crude, and seeing it as a visual version, wow, that could be really bad / great viewing.
Well, I guess it depends on who's there to rein them in.
Have you heard them too? No, that's not going to happen. Rocky Romero tries to rein them in. We'll talk about him in a bit as well, but that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, is there anything there, Mark, that takes your fancy? I have a sneaking suspicion that documentary you're going to like.
Would you like to touch base on that a little bit?
So the documentary is on the 22nd, on Thursday the 22nd, 2 days before Bound for Glory. And it is as they put a go behind the scenes with Impact's champions and challengers, including Eric Young, Rich Swann, Deonna Purrazzo, and Kylie Rae. That is basically all they've put. So it's going to be behind the scenes look. It might be a talking head style promo documentary to hype the pay-per-view. It could be something along those lines. It just sounds to me something that you would enjoy, I think.
Yeah, I do like my documentaries, and I think there's always the production that goes into it. Mm-hmm. I always wonder though, it's not so much shoot interviews, but even if they're being candid or off the cuff or something where you get a real sense of trials and or tribulations, like documentaries are skewed in the direction that they want the viewer to watch, but I'm always compelled by what kind of story they want to try to tell for each one. And if it is like a Talking Heads one, I wonder what that's going to be like. Are they going to be able to talk about where they were, where they are, and where they want to be? Do they go there and say that they were in another promotion further north, or do they play that card, or they not? In an Eric Young, he's such a talented wrestler. So Eric Young, and to know where he was and how he can see things, and has been very open, saying, I can't do a lot of things well, but I can wrestle, and I know wrestling. If there's anything in life, I can wrestle. And just like we were able to take part in the interview last week with Eric Young, I wonder what that would be part of in this type of documentary. Or is it he can be pretty succinct with what he wants to say, so it'd be interesting.
As you said, he's not been backwards and coming forwards since he's left WWE. He's gone on record plenty of times and flat out accused Vince of ruining wrestling. So if he carries that form over into the documentary, it could be proper must-watch viewing.
Yeah.
So that's Impact done. Oh no, it's not. It's not done.
Yeah, you know what? Nah, it's done.
No, is it done?
I just wanted to bring up the time they tried to do Bound for Glory, kind of like the G1, when everyone was scoring points. 2011.
Oh my god, that was the Bischoff Hogan reign, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I remember all that. It's all point system and
that one time when I had more points in the tournament than Samoa Joe did.
Is this when he was kidnapped by those ninjas?
No, I think that came after. I think this was just. I think it was that he got points got deducted from him because he had been acting out, and so, or like he'd been. It's been so long, and I've been trying to forget, but.
I cannot forget that storyline, because that storyline has never been resolved. He was kidnapped by ninjas. He came back with all that fame's pay, and then all of a sudden, it was forgotten. I will bang that drum till the day I die.
You know who might have answers? Akira Tozawa.
Go on. Oh, see, connecting the dots now. That's interesting. That's a chat for another time, though. That's Impact's done, I think, for sure now.
Yes.
And we're gonna move on to our past pieces. So this is where we have a quick chat about some pieces that have been published on the Pro Wrestling Post website. And to sound a bit youthful, we have had some bangers this week, Mark.
Is that what the kids say?
Oh, okay. Over here in the UK, it's a banger. If it's really, really good, it's a banger.
Yeah, well, here sometimes my friends will I'll show my friends a song and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, this slaps."
Oh, that's a good one. I'll start using that around. Oh, actually, I won't. Kids might get scared around me. So the past pieces, we've had one that came out today of recording, which is, if you guys and girls haven't seen it, you've got to go out your way. Joe versus Kobashi in Ring of Honor happened 15 years ago today.
Mm-hmm. I want to pull up the piece and read a quote from it, because so this was a quote that Samoa Joe had about the match leading up to the match between him and Kenta Kobashi. So as the quote goes, so Kobashi coming to America, he really thought that nobody knew who the hell he was. And he also thought that he wouldn't get a reaction. He thought he was going to be booked like he was Mr. Fuji or something. That was really his perception of what would happen in America. And I'm trying to tell him, my conversational Japanese, that, everyone out there knows you. Your tapes, you've been solid illegally. All these types of people long before this match was put in place. So when we started putting together this match, he's making it really into a 1960s, I'm the evil Japanese guy. And I remember at one point stopping him and telling him, trust me, big babyface. Those are Joe's thoughts on the match before the thoughts on the match in preparation for it too. And I think we talked about it, and even you've had comments. A little piece of Joe died that night, probably because a little piece of him was literally left in the ring from a Kobashi chop. So, yeah, seek it out, Ring of Honor fans. You probably know it well, but it's if you haven't seen it, please do. October 1st, 2005. Pieces and pieces of a young, emerging Samoa Joe left in the ring.
I'm just going to say this. You don't have to be a Ring of Honor fan to appreciate this match. You just need to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
It is top draw. It is one of the best matches, in my opinion, of all time. I talk about strong style on here a lot. You want to see a definition of strong style? Watch that match. Oh, I cannot watch it. As we're recording right now, one of our contributors, Graham, has had the DVD of that very match turn up in the post today. And he was like, "Oh, I want to watch it. I want to watch it." And I've literally screaming at him as I can in caps lock, "Watch it now!" So Graham, seriously, watch it. People out there,
if you do anything this weekend, if you do anything,
go out there. I will find a link. I will post it on everyone's social media accounts, and just watch the damn match. Pete, have you seen this match before?
Yes, I think John actually called me in when I was getting back into pro wrestling and was like, "Hey, he has the DVD," and he's like, "You need to see this match."
I wonder if Ring of Honor's YouTube channel, because they have those Throwback Thursdays, if you could search up this match and it would generate. Alex did a wonderful job commemorating this day, and some of the screenshots in the actual article actually show. I think you can see a full handprint of Kobashi on Joe's chest.
It's insane.
It's zoomed in. Yeah. Well done, Alex, and thanks for having us turn back the clock. Really looked forward to it.
Okay, guys, I found the link through the official Ring of Honor watch along. So it's with Ian Riccoboni and Todd Sinclair. They watch along the entire match. I will post the link as soon as we're done. And just get out there and watch it. It is amazing.
Well, we should go back and put the link in the article too, if it's not in there.
I will do. I shall put the link in the article as well. So first of all, listen to the pod, then go back, read the article, and then watch the match. Okay, that's the perfect way to do it.
And then read my feature, Brace for Impact, every Monday on the Pro Wrestling Boys podcast.
Oh man, I'm feeling left out now because I'm the only one that's not shilling today, because the next past piece is one that Mark wrote.
Yeah, Dean Malenko, Man of 1,000 Holds. You know, the topic of bland really, it's an unfair word to use, because you think bland, but then you look at the person who it is and what they do when you get past all character. Because yes, some things make money, but some things just make you a fan, and you just sit back and you just watch them work. And as a Dean Malenko fan, as a kid, there are things watching him that I didn't know in even researching him about, and I came across, especially ECW related, to know that he was part of the original Triple Threat, and that group that emerged in its earlier days. And I never knew that there was the initial alliance with him and Shane Douglas, but it was always there. So then when they had a chance to bring it all full circle in WCW, it was interesting to see that. But I don't think I ever saw a bad Dean Malenko match, and I'm grateful for that, because you have a memory of what somebody can give in the ring, and now with his role with AEW, what he can do outside of it. It was a lot of fun to write, to think back, to smile, and to know that as far as good as he is in the ring, I also think that he doesn't get as much credit as he does, which is part of our Unsung Heroes pieces. So definitely, thank you, Dean.
I feel bad because I didn't appreciate Dean Malenko until I really understood wrestling. So on the rare occasions where I could watch WCW over here during the 90s, late 90s, when he was on there, his matches would come on and I'd go to the bathroom, I'd go to the kitchen, I just wouldn't pay much attention. And it wasn't until, oh my word, I don't even know when, it was like the mid-2000s where I started taking a better interest in wrestling and looking at different styles. And Dean Malenko blew me away. So actually saying that, I'm going to plug my own stuff here because he's on my ECW. So I've been covering ECW. I've been covering ECW quite a bit, and he faces Eddie Guerrero a fair amount during the year that I'm covering at the moment. And watching these matches that them two have, you can see, even back in 95, just how damn good Dean Malenko was. Technically sound. Absolutely perfect. Like I said, I feel bad that it took so long for me to realise how great it was, but now I'm kind of devouring as much Dean Malenko as I possibly can. Totally underrated, definitely an unsung hero.
So interesting. So that was back in '95, right? So you're watching him as you do your ECW Sunday Night Retro views, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So back in '95, he retired in 2001. That's like a handful of years later that he was no longer an active competitor. So when he went into WWE, we didn't really get a full sense of all those things that we probably saw in ECW, where you get a chance to really appreciate what he does. Kind of gets lost in the big spectacle of some of the things that WWE does. So when you can filter out all that other stuff, you just get technique, solid technique. So
Yeah. What about you, Pete? Have you got any good Dean Malenko memories?
Unfortunately, I don't, because like my experience of him in pro wrestling growing up was as just kind of that weird hanger on to the other radicals.
Yeah.
And he really got misused, and like it wasn't till much later going back and seeing some of the old WCW stuff, even a little bit of the old ECW stuff, that really kind of like in order to really start to appreciate. Oh yeah, he was too.
He was a horseman.
Yeah. But yeah, to really appreciate Dean Malenko, you kind of have to have that appreciation for technical wrestling.
Yeah.
And when I was watching in that era, it was like all that mattered was like the big guys who can move and do their stuff, and like the little guys who would fly around. And so anyone who was like a mat wrestler would kind of came off as boring to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
that's part of the marketing, right? But we're kids, right? We want what's gonna sparkle in our eyes, what's gonna be that big, oversized giant. Nobody would ever say, like, we can all sit here, Big Sexy has tons of personality, right? Kevin Nash has tons of presence. 7 feet will give anybody presence, but can you say he was a technical wrestler? No, but maybe he didn't need to be for him. But
yeah, what was that Jim Cornette line about him? He had he once tried to teach Glenn Jacobs how to do Diesel's moveset, and he counted 6 moves, including a hair flip.
Oh man, but yeah, I totally get that. Like I said, as Pete said as well, during the late 90s, early noughties, I felt like I had dumbed down as a wrestling fan. I was exactly the same. Anything technical, anything mat based, yawn, turn channel over, go to the toilet, whatever. So yeah, going back and just seeing how great he was, and just so good. People, go out there, read this piece, read Mark's piece, read Alex's piece, read all our pieces, especially read Pete's pieces, because otherwise he's going to keep screaming down the mic catcher.
Read my feature.
So we're going to crack on forward now. We're going to turn to some indie news. I did get a little bit of hate last week for putting New Japan. I did a little bit. It was private, and it was mostly a couple of friends actually who they were ribbing me and just giving me a load of jip online. But once again, New Japan is saddled in the indie news. I'm sorry again, folks. And to my 2 friends that did give me jip, watch yourselves. So we have the G1 update this week. I'm really sad to say I've not seen any matches. I've seen highlights and I've seen lots of tweets and stuff. But there's one thing that stood out for me this week, which concerns a certain Juice Robinson. Now, when I sent you to the run sheet for this week, I guarantee you 2 had no idea what I was on about when I said Juice Robinson's promo. So Juice faced off against Kenta in a G1 match, and during the match, Kenta, unsurprisingly, hit Juice quite hard. Well, I say hit. He kicked him square in the stomach very hard. Now, this caused Juice to soil himself. Juice rather than let the information get out there and, drip feeds and everyone say, ha, you shit yourself in the ring. As soon as the match had finished, Juice went to the back, and after every match in New Japan, there's always a quick interview after the match. So Juice addressed this straight away. I have a transcript right here. So Juice comes running in. He looks at the interviewer and goes, I want to be literal for a second. I am going to be literal. Are you ready? Literally, Kenta kicked the shit out of me. You know what that means? He kicked the shit out of me. I ain't kidding. I ain't a figure of speech. I'm going to have to check my underwear because I may have sharted. Probably sharted. Do you know what a shart is? It's when you think a fart, it's a little bit more. Yeah, I sharted. Poopsie daisy. I don't do that promo justice. Juice is so damn good. He's kicked on a gear since the pandemic and lockdown and everything else. He has come out of himself. That promo, the way he delivered it, his cadence was spot on. It was a tough match. He got kicked in the gut. He sharted and he walked away with the win. He beat Kenta, and he is where is he? He is joint leading B block with Tetsuya Naito and Toru Yano with 6 points. We said this last week that we'll see how things when the lay of the land comes around. It's coming around, and there's so many surprises in both blocks. Have you two seen the standings by any chance?
Toru Yano beat Evil. Sorry, I tried to hold it in.
No, let it out. Let it out.
What is happening, man? Evil, 3 months ago was a double champion.
Yeah, and now Toru Yano beats him, and he's he's tied for first place in B block. Oh,
it's a strange one. It really is. I'm not sure if we're being trolled. I'm not sure if it is a changing of the guard and they're just trying to keep everyone on their toes. But yeah, it is a very strange G1 this year, and I cannot pick a winner from either block. Mark, have you seen much G1 action this week?
I haven't seen much G1 action, and I was looking at just some of the results. Unfortunately, like Wi-Fi is just but the standings, Pete's like bursting with like shock. I think that was nobody could have like predicted that. I don't think.
No.
But then
never.
Yeah, like not if I had one guess out of a million, that would never have even been that one that he would have been at 3-0. Is it Jay White that's also doing better?
Jay White is
still on 3-0.
He's on top of A block with it's a 5-way tie for A block. So you've got Jay White, Taichi, Will Ospreay, Kota Ibushi, and Minoru Suzuki, all at 6 points, 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
Followed by Kazuchika Okada with 4 points at 2-2. Jeff Cobb, Tomohiro Ishii, Shingo Takagi, all at 2 points, 1-3. And then Yujiro Takahashi, unsurprisingly, bringing up the rear with no points, 0-4. That's that A block can still go either way. I'm seeing Suzuki sitting there and joint top spot, thinking, cool, this could be there's a run in the old dog yet,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm similarly excited to see Minoru Suzuki make his way up into that first place contention.
Yeah, that's looking interesting. And then you've got B block, which I kind of touched on a minute ago. So you've got Tetsuya Naito and Juice Robinson and your best friend Toru Yano, all at 6 points, 3-1. Then we have a 4-way tie with Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., Evil, and Hiroshi Tanahashi, all at 4 points, 2-2. Then we have a 3-way tie for the last spot, and this is where I kind of scream a little bit. You've got Hiroki Goto, Yoshihashi, and Bloody Sanada, all at 2 points, 1-3. I said Sanada was my pick going into this, and he's bottom of the bloody pile. Again, what is going on?
I think the bigger question are, what are your NFL picks this week, Mark?
Oh, don't. My fantasy team for NFL is absolute trash. Oh, I've got 4 running backs all out this week. I'm screwed. Anyway, going back to wrestling. Yeah, this G1, it's insane. It's kept everyone on their toes. I think deep down, this is happening to keep them to keep New Japan top of the headlines, because there's so many things going completely haywire and results that are unexpected, is keeping the New Japan and the G1 top of the headlines. It's like, oh my God, look at this. You know, Toru Yano beat Evil, headline news. That's the cynic in me. So that's your G1, your topsy-turvy, upside-down, completely crazy G1 done. Expect more next week. Hopefully I'll get some bloody time to watch it and enjoy the Toru Yano Express. All aboard the Toru Yano Express. Have you guys, by any chance, caught Talking Shopomania yet?
The first one?
The first one, because
I did.
number 2 has been announced. Number 2 has been announced, and Rocky Romero was on the Wrestling Inc. Daily Podcast this past week, bigging up, talking about Talking Shopomania Part 2, The Rise of the Torturer. You said you know a little bit about the podcast, Pete. Do you know much about the Torturer?
No, I do not.
Okay.
No.
So we all know that Doc Gallows, the big LG, whatever you want to call him, he likes to play a few characters. One of his characters, whilst Talking Shop was on air and they had the New Japan contracts, one of his characters was a guy, and please don't shoot me, folks, was a guy called the Cock Torturer. Okay? I'm not going to go any further than that. If you want to know, do it on your own time and Google it. Since they went to WWE, he had to get rid of all his characters and all that kind of stuff. Keep it all very quiet. Now they're not with the WWE and they've got their Talking Shop podcast back. They have brought back the Cock Torturer for Talking Shopomania number 2. The main event for the first Talking Shopomania was a Boneyard match. And again, I'm not going to go into details. You can quite easily Google it to find out all about it. It was obviously a rib and if you want to be English about it, a piss take of the Boneyard match from this year's WrestleMania. The main event of the Talking Shopomania 2 is a ball for a ball match. I'll just let that hang there a little bit more. Ball for a ball match.
Sorry, you're letting the balls hang?
Someone got it. So obviously this is a rib on a certain eye for an eye match that took place this year, and it contests Sex Ferguson against Chad Too Bad in a ball for a ball match. I'm not going to go any further than that, but Rocky Romero was on this podcast with Wrestling Inc. and he basically just says how surprised him and the Talking Shop boys were with the success of the first one, and talks about number 2. And he says obviously it's going to be headlined with a ball for a ball match, and there also will be Chico El Luchador versus Chavo Guerrero in a Lucha Libre death match. Now, for those of you that don't know, Chico El Luchador is Rocky Romero, and Chavo Guerrero is obviously Chavo Guerrero. Quick question. Anyone know what a Lucha Libre death match is?
I have some ideas about a Lucha Libre death match.
I bet your ideas are a lot more tamer than their ideas. I guarantee that.
Probably, yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen some pretty nasty Lucha Libre matches, but I'm wondering if there's any kind of like extra gimmick they're gonna add.
So yeah, a Lucha Libre death match, possible co-main event for Talking Shopomania 2. I know you two guys haven't really seen the first one. Again, if you can, get out of the way to see it. And seriously, you've got to watch number 2. I'm going to watch it. I will probably watch it live. I don't care if I'm completely tired for work the next day. I need to watch it. Let's crack on. We have a quick preview coming up for an event that takes place this Saturday. So by the time you guys hear it, it would have happened already. But it'll be on IWTV, so you can probably go back and watch it. Mark, it's Black Label Pro.
Yeah, their Turbo Grap 60 tournament is happening. It's not the first year that they've had this. No, I want to say it's the second year. It may be the third. Reason I'm saying that is a certain internet wrestling television champion gained notoriety at this tournament when his character was born in Warhorse. So that tournament is taking place this coming Saturday. It's a 2-show event on the same night or the same day. What I am wondering is, I'm hoping that Alex Shelley has a really good pair of shoes, because he's on this show at noon, and then he's part of Victory Road later on in that night. So he's gonna have to really, really motor. So if that's the case,
Yeah.
when it comes to
Who's
me,
who's he facing that day?
he's facing Miss another Impact Wrestling talent as smiling Kylie Ray. So the two
Yes.
will square off with one another. Looking forward to that. And if you've seen either one, you know what you're gonna get. And two pros going at it. So the TurboGrafx 16 tournament, it's 16 wrestlers over the two shows. What happened in the past? We saw the birth of Warhorse and how he all came about was actually at this tournament. He came out and blitzed up and then emerged, and here we are. So he'll be defending his title that night. But there are some real standout matches that I look forward to. ACH versus Christian Casanova.
Mm-hmm.
Excited about what those two can do. And then Blake Christian and Chris Bay. Those that know Chris Bay from Impact, like our good friend Pete, who covers them every week on his feature, Brace for Impact.
Every Monday.
Every Monday. See, why can't we do that too? I think there's nothing wrong with shilling your work.
We're slacking with shilling.
You push me to do it more, I'm doing it more. What do you want?
we're just talking other mediums, not just the podcast. And he faces Blake Christian, who's just out of this world, extraterrestrial type, space type, high flyer, man. He's all over the place. So those are a couple of the key matches. And I think the one, and we mentioned this before, a match that's really developed some steam under it is the Ethan Page, Dan the Wrestler, who was Dan the Dad, and how the character was in the possession of Ethan Page. Well, now that's all going to come to pass, and the two are going to square off against each other, and it's going to happen again for Black Label Pro this coming Saturday. So two shows, one at 12 and then one at 4. So I'm guessing those that advance from the 12 o'clock show are going to compete against those that are competing in the 4 o'clock show. So it's going to be a busy day.
A lot of double duty going on there, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, man. Is there anything in those matches stand out to you, Pete? I'm surely the Ethan Page one.
Yeah,
Cause...
there we go.
There we go. Yeah,
like I've seen them. Well, yeah, like I'm a huge fan of Alpha One. Dan the Dad, or I guess Dan the Wrestler now, showed up there a bunch. He's still, I think he's the reigning Zero Gravity champion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, that's it's the one where I know the people involved.
Oh, and if there's one other match, I guess the BLT, Bacon Loves Tomato, BLP championship match between Jake Something and Calvin Tankman. And Tankman, whose moment of bliss turned into utter disappointment, where Something capitalized on. He won it kind of works along the ways of like a Money in the Bank. You can cash in at any time. I guess much like Rohit Raj did, which you would be able to hear in Pete's feature, Brace for Impact.
Every Monday.
Every Monday, you'd be able to hear it in there too. So then 6 degrees of separation. It always comes back to Impact. So again, these two facing each other. Look out for these two big hosses to beat each other senseless. Look forward to it.
And that's this Saturday. It takes place. So obviously, by the time you hear this on a Sunday, it's already passed. But like I said, get yourself onto IWTV even and search for it on there. It's BLP Black Label Pro. I've just been a great promotion. We've followed them for quite a few years now. Here we've got a good relationship with them, and in these struggling times, we'll do anything we can to help out as many people as we can. And we're going to finish up today with a future piece, which is where we give you a quick teaser of one or two of our posts coming up on the Pro Wrestling Post website. And then today it's the one post, and it's a very important post. It's a Trailblazer post about Hayabusa. Mark?
Yes. If you think of one promotion being synonymous with Hayabusa, the late Hayabusa, it would be FMW. And he is synonymous with the company. In reading Alex's piece, Alex, who's been our roving pro expert and really helped to build the foundation of the Trailblazers pieces, he talks about Hayabusa, but in doing so, where the name actually translates to as being Falcon. And yes, the piece is titled Hayabusa, FMW's Lone Falcon. That comes out this coming Monday. Talks about his career, his legacy, how he is and was an innovator to his tragic career-ending injury. For those that might have seen it, where to even relive it is sad. A moonsault gone wrong, ended his career, but at the same time, what he did in the ring, what he meant to a triumphant attempt to walk again. And when that did happen, the tears that were in the eyes of those that watched it. Sadly, he did pass away. But fans will often remember his matches and what he's contributed to this sport. So thank you, Alex, and rest in peace, Mr. Hayabusa.
Indeed, my only match that I've ever seen Hayabusa in was in ECW, which is mentioned in Alex's piece. It's the where he teamed with Shinzaki against RVD and Sabu for the ECW Tag Team Championships. He totally blew me away, Hayabusa. I mean, if the internet existed when I first watched this match, which was early 2000s, well, it did exist, but not to the extent it is now, I would be gorging myself on Hayabusa. Again, he was innovative and quite rightly deserves the title of Trailblazer. And there we go, folks. That draws to a close another Pro Wrestling Post podcast. It's been another mammoth episode. We need to start watching this time, I think. But you're sat with three passionate wrestling fans who sometimes get carried away and don't give a damn about the clock, much like how Uncle Vince doesn't give a damn about long-term booking. Before we go, let's push our socials as normal. Pete, have we got any secret coded messages or jokes this week?
No, unfortunately. This week you can find me. Where's my feature again? What's it called again?
Read
it.
Read, yeah.
Brace
Get
for
yourself on
Impact
Pro Wrestling Post.
Every Monday on the Pro Wrestling Post. You can find me on Twitter at Pete Probably, and you can find me in the 2014 surrealist short film Pretzel Glass.
There we go, folks. If you're not searching for that next week, shame on you. Where can we find you, Mark?
You can find me personally. Well, you can't find me personally, but if you were to find me personally online, when it came to reaching me on my own personal handle, it's at the Mark Madison. Pretty bland, not like some wrestlers, or characters, but it's pretty bland. And you can also reach our main featured sites, Twitter handle at Pro Wrestling PST. Please let one more letter stand out for the O, and I will capitalize it, and it will matter. But unfortunately, it's at Pro Wrestling PST. And then you can reach us on Instagram at Pro Wrestling Post, or you can come to our Facebook page. Please, do what your parents did. Go to Facebook, go to our page, see how we blend in the yin, the yang that it has to do with it, and search us up. We recently celebrated 3,000 likes.
Yeah, and if MySpace was still around, I'm pretty sure we'll be on there too. You can find me on Twitter at Mark Blake PWP. I'm always there for a chat and a giggle. And don't forget the Pro Wrestling Post podcast at PWP_pod. As always, we will be back the same again this time next week. So until then, bye-bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Read my feature.